Good morning, everyone. I would like to welcome this hybrid Metro Plan Orlando TSMOAC meeting. Call it to order and welcome you to the meeting. I'm Doug Jamison. We have several members who are physically present in our room to make the quorum, and the rest will be joining us virtually. I will ask committee members to remember to turn on your microphone when you're speaking, turn it off when you are not. If you can also, if you are speaking, state your name for the record. And for those of us wearing masks, please make sure that you can speak as clearly as you can to be heard. Committee members that are joining online will participate in the discussion, and they will also vote on the action items. Please use the raise hands feature on the Zoom toolbar if you would like to speak. The public will also be able to participate virtually. There are 2 public comment points in our meeting. Members of the public who want to speak will use the raise hands feature on the Zoom screen. If you are attending by phone, you can hit *9 to raise your hand and request to be recognized. When you are called, your microphone will be temporarily unmuted by staff and will ask you to state your name and your contact information for the record. We have also accepted comments by email before the meeting. With that, I'd like to turn it to Mr. Hill for the agenda review.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, members. Thank you for joining us this morning, and we appreciate your patience as we continue to hold these meetings virtually as well as in person. When we use this format, we need to have a quorum of 14 members in the room, just as we do when we have in-person meetings, which we discussed earlier. The crucial difference is that with a minimum quorum in the room, we can conduct votes in which all members participate, and those members online are counted as present. This makes it very important to RSVP for meetings, so we know if we are in danger of not having a quorum and can prepare for that, possibly by contacting members one-on-one to make sure we can get the right number of people here. There will still be a Zoom option available for the public, and we encourage members of the public to remain virtual as they observe the meeting and make public comments. When we meet in person, we are observing current CDC guidelines and ask all members to wear masks during the meeting. With that, let me say, if you are uncomfortable wearing a mask, you can go ahead and take it off. Or if it's your preference to wear the mask, go ahead and wear it. But we're giving you the flexibility. We'll ask that everyone be considerate of each other, and please let me know if you have any questions. Now I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Lisa Smith for attendance in the roll call.
Yes, good morning. I will ask all committee members joining us online to please unmute yourselves now for the roll call. While those in the room, please keep your microphones off until called. Online participants, please make sure your video is on if possible so that we can confirm that it's you. You will find the unmute and video buttons on your Zoom screen. Please say here or present when your name is called. Blackadar.
Here.
Broad.
Here.
Brown. Cash, Carson, Edie,
Present.
El Hassar, Thalbab,
Present.
Felblinger,
Here.
Friel, Francis,
Here.
Herschelman, Homiani,
Present.
Jameson,
Here.
Dredge,
Here.
Kane, Kelly,
Here.
Krug,
Here.
Lee,
Here.
Margraff,
Here.
McDaniel, Muhison,
Present.
Pulliam, Richmond,
Present.
Sanders,
Here.
Schmidt, Sonorens,
Here.
Smith,
Present.
Walter,
Here.
Wetzel.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Lisa. We will now hear public comments on our action items. If we have people who would like to speak to any of these items, please use the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen or by pressing *9 on your phone keypad. When we call your name, the host will unmute your microphone and you will see a pop-up button that says the host wants to unmute you. Accept that prompt to activate your microphone. We ask you to provide your name and your address for the record, and please hold your comments to 2 minutes or less. Are there any comments at this time?
Mr. Chair, we have Joanne Canellis on the attendee side with her hand raised.
Thank you. And we do not have anybody in the room, so Joanne, if you would state
Hello.
your name, give us your name and your
Good
address, and
morning.
go ahead.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Like I said yesterday, I'd like to have 24 hours bus service and train service, including holidays, weekends, and nighttime. And we'd like to have the bus over at the Country Club Road in Lake Mary, and which is the Lake Mary from Sun Hill Station to Seminole State College, and I'd like to have the at least the bus stop right there next to the Estora Road, which is at the park. That's both the northbound and southbound, please. And I'd like to have a bus over at a bus stop back over at the not Maitland. What do you call it? The Oviedo Boulevard, where the swimming places I've been going to. And that's over at the pool. It's called Oviedo Aquatic Center and gymnasium place here. And I'd like to have this transportation every half hour in Seminole County, and all of it, including nighttime and as well, so that no one be stranded coming home from the destination, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Canellis. Can you give us your name and address just for the record, please?
Okay, Joanne Canellis, 324, 324 Claremont Road, Lake Mary, Florida, 32746.
Okay, thank you very much for your comment.
Oh, you're welcome.
Do we have any other comments? Seeing and hearing none, we will go ahead and move on to our action items. We have 4 action items for today. I will ask that people either raise their hands or use the button on your screen and wait to be called. And please use your name if speaking so that we can have it for the record. Our first item is the approval of the October 22nd TSMO meetings that are at tab 1 in your packets. Do we have any comments, corrections to be addressed? And seeing none, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Name,
Nabil
please.
Mohajen.
And second.
Ramon Santarin, second.
Thank you. We have motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, this is a voice vote, so please unmute your microphones. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you. Our next item is the amendment to the 2045 MTP, which is found in tab 2 of the agenda. Mr. Alex Trogger from MetroPlan will be presenting the information. Please hold your questions until the item presentation is finished. Mr. Trogger.
Good morning, everyone. Similar to last month, we are coming to you and proposing an amendment to the 2045 MTP. This one and the information for this amendment is actually found in tab 2 of your printed agendas, and it's for the Hicks Avenue Extension Project located in the Griffin Park community of the city of Orlando. As noted in the supplemental materials, this was originally intended to be implemented or constructed as part of the I-4 Ultimate Concessionaires Agreement. The city of Orlando has actually implemented the preliminary phases of this and is moving through some final public participation that's going to be starting in the coming weeks, as noted in your packet. But because that project was originally in the concessionaires agreement and now is being pulled out to be constructed as a standalone, it needs to be amended and shown in our MTP accordingly. With that, I can answer any questions, but we are looking for your approval and support this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Alex? I'm not seeing questions in the room, and I am not seeing any raised hands. So without any questions, I will ask you for the motion.
This is Chad Smith. I would move to approve.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second. Brett Blackader.
Thank you. Motion, second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, again, this is a voice vote, so I will ask everybody in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And anybody opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Next item is the amendment to the Transportation Improvement Plan, which is found in tab 3 of the agenda. Mr. Keith Caskey from MetroPlan Orlando will present the information. Again, we're getting some feedback there. Again, please hold any questions until after the presentation. Keith?
Okay, good morning. The amendment we have this morning includes a total of 12 projects, and 7 of these projects involve the use of the American Rescue Plan Act federal stimulus funds that were discussed in the FDOT presentation at your last meeting. And these include 4 interchange projects on I-4 at State Road 528 and State Road 535 in Orange County, and at County Road 46A and US 1792 in Seminole County. And then there are 3 resurfacing and safety projects in Orange County on State Road 436, on Conway Road, and on Washington Street. And for that last project, there is a correction in the FDOT letter. It said that State Road 526 project was on Robinson Street, but it's actually on Washington Street since it's west of I-4. And that correction has been made to the resolution and so on. Then there are 5 other projects. We have the Hicks Avenue extension that you all just heard about for the MTP amendment. There's the I-4 single express lane from State Road 536 to Darrell Carter Parkway. And then Lynx is getting some funding to provide transportation services for the Opportunity Center in Osceola County. There's a railroad crossing project in Orlando and a radar sensor project on John Young Parkway. And you all have the information on this in tab 3 in your packets. So with that, unless there's any questions, we're asking for your approval of the amendment.
Thank you, Keith. Any questions? I am not seeing questions in the room nor raised hands. So with that, I will ask if we have a motion.
Chad Smith, second.
Okay, motion second. Any discussion on the motion? With that, this is again a voice vote. So all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you, Keith. Next item is the election of officers for 2022 for our committee. Hazem Elisar will be presenting on behalf of the subcommittee that we appointed for the recommendations for chairperson and vice chairperson. Hazem.
Good morning. The selection subcommittee met.
Hazem, you might.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
The selection subcommittee met last month and decided to nominate Ramon Sonoras from Kissimmee Gateway Airport as chairman, and he accepted the nomination.
Do we have any other nominations from the floor? See nobody jumping up to volunteer. Like to ask if we have a motion for approval.
Motion to approve, Nabil Mahai.
Second, Steve Kane.
Motion second. Any discussion? A lot of relief faces. Okay. With that, go ahead and ask for approval. So this again is a voice vote. All that are in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hazem.
All right. The committee or the subcommittee decided to nominate Chad Smith for vice chair position. He's from the city of Longwood.
And I assume he's accepted.
I have. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other nominations from the floor? Seeing none, I will ask for a motion.
Move to approve Ramon Semerens.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second, Brett Blocketer.
Motion second. Any discussion? Seeing none, it's again a voice vote. So I will ask everybody in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion passes. And congratulations, sir. We have one presentation today. We'll ask that everybody hold any questions until the end of the presentation. We will welcome Mr. Clayton Levines, the Executive Director with Smart North Florida, who will present on how Smart North Florida is using innovations and data management for transportation and community problem solving. He is joining us virtually today, so your attention to the screens, please. And you have the floor, sir.
Good morning. Thank you. Thanks to everyone for the invitation to speak with you all today. I had the great pleasure of meeting Mr. Eric Hill at a conference recently, and he's, to say the least, a very sharp guy, and really appreciated the time to get to talk to him and letting me know all the great things that are being done through Metro Plan Orlando. And I'm really excited to share with you all what's going on here in the North Florida region, our 7-county area, regarding Smart North Florida. Some of you may be familiar with us. I'm actually going to open up my screen share now for you. Hopefully the group can see at this point. We are, as you can see, it's sort of alluded to, are a smart city organization born out of the smart city movement here in North Florida. And really born out of the North Florida TPO. So many of you know Jeff Sheffield. I like to joke that, and I think Jeff has sort of grown accustomed to this joke and now accepts it, that he is the godfather of this movement, at least in North Florida. And he's truly been at the tip of the spear and gotten it to the point. And it's pretty remarkable that, Smart North Florida has now moved from a movement, smart city movement, to a full-fledged organization, 501c3 nonprofit, largely thanks to his leadership and the leadership of MPOs across the state that continue to drive this forward, particularly in the transportation space. So I'm really excited to share with you all our growth. As you can see on my next slide here, our mission statement is such that we are harnessing the power of smart technology coordinated data, and regional collaboration to improve the quality of life of the North Florida region. And that North Florida region is really the 7-county geographical region here, from obviously Duval, Clay, Nassau, Baker, Putnam, and St. John's. I think I got everything in there. I may have missed one. I apologize. But really the short and skinny of what I like to say that we are is really think of us as public sector and communities across the board. Think of us as their innovation partner. So a bit of my background, I started in the public policy world, and then after getting my MBA, jumped into the private sector, particularly working in corporate venture capital. And many of you working alongside private sector or being in private sector know that, oftentimes those companies have the ability to reinvest in themselves and innovation practices, whether it's developing new products internally and innovating the products and services that they deliver, or scouting new and innovative startups out in the greater public to see if there could be acquisitions or partnerships made to, again, continue to progress and advance their business model and drive that forward for their customers. Our argument, our premise is that public sector can do the same in this innovation space, can utilize new technologies and develop them internally and apply it to the business of running government, the business of transit in this case, and innovate in new ways that can be extremely practical. And that's one thing that we're driving as well is practical innovation. So I'm not a product reseller. I don't shave off the top of any of the products that I'll mention here in a moment that are coming into market. We're really here to match problem statements with solutions that drive productivity for public sector entities that we partner with. So we always solely operate off of the problem statement with our public sector partners, which is critical, I think, for the smart city movement, and is really something that many smart city organizations are applying day to day now, or are realizing that maybe forcing a certain type of technology was not the way to go in the past, and now are really trying to apply this to a more problem statement focus. And the last thing before I really jump into the meat of what we are is, you might be sitting back and saying, Clayton, that's great, we love innovation, but I'm sure many of you have heard the word innovation, and there may be some skepticism there as to how it's defined. I know I oftentimes become skeptical with it, because innovation can live up here, and you all, especially on the technical side of transportation, you live in the very in the detail and in the practical, frankly, and that's my goal too, is with this organization, is really defining what is practical within a smart city movement and what innovation really looks like. And if you were to ask me what gets us from the 100,000 foot to hopefully at least the 30,000 foot with respect to innovation in the public sector, it's those three things in our mission statement. That if you are championing the innovative use of smart technology, if you are championing the leveraging of transparent, coordinated data across regions, and we're just sitting around the table as collaborative individuals, we're really coming together to drive innovation in the public sector space. So hopefully that ties all together as the foundation of what Smart North Florida is doing. And now, hopefully I can illustrate a little bit about what are the practical things that we're doing day to day. And the first thing I would share with you all is what I like to call our technology sandbox, right? So this is the notion that I mentioned of, we're just doing practical problem solving with the use of really smart technologies. We, are understanding, I'm understanding that oftentimes in the public sector, there are not dedicated staff members to be able to go out and scout new technologies. And then there's also, of course, that we're in an environment that doesn't always take high risk. And so our goal with doing this technology scouting for this sandboxing environment is to be public sector's partner in de-risking the investment into new technologies. If I can sit in front of, through our experience, and not just look at all the boxes that technology is, the technologies that could be applied to these problem statements, making sure that it's not just checking all the boxes, but it's also, is the leadership team of the company solid? How much revenue are they really pulling in? Is their customer service up to snuff? all of these things that sometimes don't get addressed at the beginning, but also making sure that it's still solving that critical problem statement. I think that's where Smart North Florida can come in and be a really nice fit for engaging and driving more practical problem solving and being that buffer for de-risking some investments that public sector can start to make in this environment. And so, like you see here on the screen, we can bring these new solutions to market. And one example of what we've done in that space, and I'm going to highlight a couple additional ones in a moment, is a technology whose sort of a screenshot of their platform you see on my screen, called Robotics. And Robotics is a pavement management platform. Some of you may have heard of this company. They're based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They're a startup that essentially uses your cell phone to basically place onto the dashboard of perhaps a public works, fleet vehicle, and allows for that public works employee to drive the roadways in question. And it's constantly ingesting visual data that then is using artificial intelligence and analytics to produce the background that you see right here, which is pavement management analysis. And it's simply green means good, red means bad, right? And so just to give you an example of how this system and why it has worked in our region, the solution was piloted in Clay County, Florida. It was fully deployed in Nassau County. Nassau County, the county government was able to get a 20-year road management plan out of the utilization of this solution and really able to prioritize appropriately their investment in those roadways. And then it's now being deployed in cities of Neptune Beach, city of Palatka, city of Keystone Heights, city of St. Augustine, and I think several others are jumping into the solution and the results that it's bringing. And this isn't about championing robotics, or they have a very good platform, and we always advocate for their technology. But this is more of showing that when we're able to sometimes break down the barriers of getting new solutions into the hand of public sector, there's a ripple effect across the region, and we can help to share best practices of solution adoption across the region that really maximizes impact for our public sector partners. So a couple of the other transit related, especially technologies that we are either working with directly, have worked with, or it's in the pipeline. Robotics, again, is an example for you that I just discussed. Revo is a smart tire management company. I believe they actually have done some work in Orlando. We're very interested in their solution, and it's hopefully very soon going to be piloted with the Jacksonville Transportation Authority. It's essentially using sensors to totally transform the way tire-based data is real time, is being brought into fleet management, optimizing expenditures on this very expensive O&M feature of fleet vehicles. Additionally, we're getting into some of the traffic management technology. Street Simplified is but one example of many that we've taken a look at with respect to identifying using LiDAR or other sensor-based technologies to identify solutions for potential problem roadways. Street Simplified is particularly interesting simply because they use a proprietary camera system to do their recording, and they also have a proprietary AI that they utilize. And so we're interested in getting them deployed just to see how their technology stack matches against other solutions in the market. I believe that's the only ones I want to. There's one other one that we're working on that I haven't put into the slide deck yet, just simply because it's a newer technology. We're about to put them out into the field. It's a solution called TrainFo. It's very interesting. They're using acoustic sensors to detect essentially the distance from the train is from the railroad crossing, with the potential to divert specifically EMS response. We have some problem areas in our region for that, but also to potentially get it into consumers' hands to potentially allow them to divert some of their mapping for their transit, which is something we're really interested in trying here. So very excited about that pilot as well. Additionally, we're also trying to drive innovation in communities using a living labs concept. Very simple. If you read smart city literature, this will come as no surprise, where we're leveraging just public, private, and nonprofit partnerships to dedicate the deployment of technologies to very specific problem statements or to new and emerging technology markets. So in the case of our region, we have quite a few that we're leveraging, but probably most specific to the conversation today, our Bay Street Innovation Corridor is where Jacksonville Transportation Authority is dedicating technology testing specifically to autonomous vehicles. So that's where the autonomous vehicle program for JTA will largely be deployed. Many of you are familiar with JTA's approach in that. And then the City Lab within City of St. Augustine. So we had the privilege of submitting a Smart St. Augustine application to the USDOT's RAISE grant, wherein our approach is and has been, because we're currently deploying some technology with them, to focus on this City Lab concept with a very concentrated downtown core. St. Augustine sees 6 million visitors within their community each year. So how do we leverage all of that person data from the transit side to just pedestrian side? How do we leverage all of that data that's coming in to deploy solutions that are really of value to maximizing City of St. Augustine's tourist economy and maximize their the livability of that environment? So Smart St. Augustine's has been a great project and partnership for us, and their city leadership is phenomenal. The other two that you see on the screen are a little bit maybe out of scope for this conversation, but we're testing resiliency technologies with the city of Neptune Beach. Those are going to be deployed by February of 22. We're really excited about that. And this agricultural technology lab with the city of Keystone Heights is a little more experimental right now. So I look forward to potentially updating you all on this as we drive forward. But this living lab concept and bringing in partners to and sort of putting out an all call to bring in startups and solutions within this sort of confined testing environment has proven very successful for us thus far, and we look to eagerly expand that across the region. This is just some quick highlights of Smart St. Augustine. I want to be respectful of everybody's time, so I won't walk through each one of them, but you can sort of see why it's, again, this living lab concept, the geography of it, and why it's important. And we have more information about it on our website, and you're welcome to reach out to me anytime if you'd like to know more. And my last slide here is just to cover with you all the data, right? The data is, many of us would say it's the most important part, and what I like to say is that it's the last mile to innovation, right? So for Smart North Florida, we have an asset, an open integrated data exchange. If you were to log on to our website right now, you could jump into the exchange and see that largely it's a repository, which is just tier one, as you can see on the screen. That's the baseline of where we want to go. Since I've jumped on board to Smart North Florida earlier this year, my goal has been making this a more dynamic storytelling mechanism for innovation case studies across our region. And I'm really pleased to say that we're making developments on our platform that will allow us to create GIS mapping and dashboarding, as you see on the screen, storytelling mechanisms that allow us to utilize the data that's coming in from these innovation case studies or other problem statements that community partners are trying to solve, to really give decision makers like yourselves the tools that you need to say, wow, this technology is working, or we need to invest in this particular area of our community in greater ways, in a very open and transparent environment. That's really our goal here. We believe that data is the next great utility for citizens across the board, and we're really excited to continue to develop this platform to reflect that. It's going to look a lot like what you see on the screen, this very narrative visualization, honestly, business 101 side of just how do we get the data into the hands, like I said, of decision makers. And you can imagine the importance of that, because if you, as many of you do day to day, you deal with smart technologies. A lot of them are sensor-based technologies that are not seen to the naked eye. And so the idea is, if you use a robotics platform that I just mentioned earlier, you're not always going to be able to easily visualize all of the innovations that are being driven from that product. You certainly can't hand out subscriptions to to every citizen in your community. So how do we do that? Well, we use this type of repository to show not only the maps that Robotics may be producing, but what are the innovations and the cost savings, the time savings for the employees of the city. I'll give you a really quick example. The city of Keystone Heights, as I mentioned, is adopting the solution. There's only 1,500 people who live there and only 15 city employees, 3 of whom are public works employees. To perform pavement management analysis before Robotics, it was a multi-day, all 3 employee process. Now with utilizing Robotics, it's a 1-day, I think an hour-long process for 1 employee. We need to visualize not just what Robotics is bringing in with that data, but also the city savings from the time savings of being able to deploy their resources and assets into other areas of the business, right? So that's really important to us. And the last thing I'll say in conclusion, because I want to be, again, respectful of everyone's time, is this model works for communities large and small. Like I mentioned, we're in cities as small as Keystone Heights, Florida, with 1,500 people, to as large as Jacksonville, which is upwards of 1 million. And for us, this is the approach that we've been taking to build towards a capacity that can service every aspect of our region, every community in our region. And for us to be truly smart, it has to include everybody. And that's really our goal here, is to build a model that we can deploy in cities as small as Keystone and as large as Jacksonville. And so we're really pleased about the growth and development of that for our case. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to that. I'm happy to take questions if that's an appropriate method going forward, but I just really appreciate the time and would just look forward to finding any ways to continue to partner with you all, because this is something we want to take across the state. This isn't just a North Florida thing. This is definitely something that the entire state of Florida can achieve to be really smart Florida and not just smart North Florida. So thank you all again for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for your presentation. Very much appreciate it and appreciate the offer. I think we're all smarter together rather than doing our independent projects. I do have a question for you. Mr. Hill and I have had some discussions about how do we engage the companies that are within our community who might want to play in this innovation sandbox, but they're not part of what we currently do. For example, in Central Florida, we have a lot of aerospace. We have a lot of technology companies supporting the theme parks that might have some great creative ideas and data, but they don't come to our table and we don't go to their table.
Absolutely.
You address that, and do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's something that we're discovering more and more each day. I think it's where we see at least our fit there, and where it might lean to assisting you all is this group seems to be, as I understand it, a great convening platform. And so just finding these very small ways to invite some of these companies, or to be the conduit for connection for these companies, to just sit down with community partners. You know, as Eric and I spoke, you know, you all seem to do a really good job of reaching beyond transit with your partnerships. So I don't think it's a stretch for you know, your organization and the partners around the table to look at yourselves as the convener, right? You all know many representatives in the community, so just pulling them together around the table. That's literally how Jeff at least started this thing. It was so organic that it was just, you know, Jeff got connected with a hospital like UF Health, and he finds this great, you know, drone defibrillator company that's using essentially drones to deliver defibrillators in rural areas where EMS can't get to in a timely manner. They connect, and boom, a partnership is formed. So sometimes it's just like, it's literally just that organic of making a connection, being the convener, and then sort of just, you know, backing away to just let the magic happen, right? And then finding the opportunities to formalize that in the programmatic sense is comes down the line. Like, I don't think, you know, I know one of our early defaults is to go like, we have to have a pitch event, or we have to have a, you know, some kind of, you know, something. I think it's as simple as getting just that kind of organic. So I hope that kind of answers your question. That's more of our experience of how it started, is just like these connections just start coming, and they're a couple of the business books that I've read, and, you know, they are what they are these days, but they refer to them as collisions, right? And I do really like that vernacular with this. It's about how can you, from a philosophy side, how can you create as many collisions as possible in this space to just then see how organically these companies just start to connect and network and be able to be, to grow with what it is that you're working on. So hopefully that sort of answered your question.
Thank you. Yes, it does.
Great.
Other questions from the group? Brett, you are recognized.
Thank you, Clayton. Brett Blackett with the City of Altamont Springs. I'm curious about the choice to go as a nonprofit in this case. I know when Jeff Sheffield presented here, it was probably about 2 years ago. It was part of the TPO up there. So what does that get you, and what kind of governance you have, and what about funding and procurement and all that package now with it being a nonprofit?
Yeah, great questions. And it's probably a part of a larger conversation we can follow up on, but nonetheless, I think the advantage that I found being a nonprofit at the moment is obviously the grant opportunities that are involved, which I think is pretty, it's pretty self-explanatory. But also for us, there's a unique trust factor, that just an organic trust factor that comes into play with the partnerships that we're creating. Frankly, it's just we're less threatening in a way. I think philosophically we're not viewed as an entity that's trying to grab something. We're viewed as that convener, and part of that is just the great work that Jeff had done to champion this and bring it and bring it forward. And so that's a really favorable model for us. And the last thing I'll say is, I'm a startup, to shoot everybody straight. I mean, I'm a startup. And so being this flexible 501c3 at the moment, I think is allowing me to get the opportunity to see what areas of our business can we transition into, recurring revenue, and not something that, I don't, my philosophy, at least with Smart North Florida is I don't want us to be just solely grant dependent, or, I want us to create really true products that we can bring to market to be supportive of public sector partnerships. So that's another reason the 501c3 model, at least that I found, has given us some flexibility there. As far as governance, I'm a team of one, so it's just me right now. However, I do answer to a board. So Jeff is my board chair. I'm actually sitting in the North Florida TPO building right now. And if you haven't come up to see the RTMC or come visit, we'd love to have you. So I get to go see Jeff every day, and he keeps me on the straight and narrow, as I like to joke. But we also have our board is composed of a member of UNF, so higher ed, JEA, our utility company, City of St. Augustine's Public Works Director, Reuben Franklin, and then LISC Jacksonville. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the LISC organization, Local Initiative Support Corporation. They're a phenomenal community development investment bank. And so one of their community development program officers on my board as well. So we really go for a cross section of the community that's representative of how we can drive innovation within every sector. So hopefully that starts to near in on some of your thoughts there. As far as funding, I think I mentioned so grants. We're also, frankly speaking, we're developing some contractual relationships with some of our smaller communities that are looking to for advice on how to get a smart community going, as well as some of our nonprofit partners to help them with their data visualization. So that sort of goes into the recurring revenue side, but I'm not trying to give you a sales pitch today.
Cheers.
Hi, thank you very much for the presentation. I'm Shad Smith, City of Longwood. You mentioned the railroad crossing audio. What was the name of that company again? I didn't catch it.
Yeah,
That's
sorry.
Issue we have. So
yeah. So the company is Trainfo, and I'd be happy to send you that information, or I'll send it to Eric and he can have it sent to you.
yeah, that would be great.
And just to let you know from the FDOT side, because I'm sure everybody's very familiar with the APL, they are in the process of getting on the APL, which would be a huge, obviously, plus for that partnership. Now, the beauty of their solution is it has the capability to go on public right-of-way. So that means, sometimes our train companies on the private side, at least, they can be a little particular to work with. So it gives us some flexibility there too, to be able to deploy the solution without having to search and around for too much permission, if you will. But yeah, I'm happy to share that information with you.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely.
Other questions, comments? Yes, Brian.
Good morning, Clayton. I'm Brian Homiuni with the Central Florida Expressway Authority. Thanks for the presentation. Well done. Question I have for you is, where do you see equity fitting into your core mission and vision, and how does that play into how you identify and select projects?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think right now, from a project selection standpoint, because we're so new to the market, from getting projects on the ground with with our community partners, it's largely based on the community need, which we're fortunate to see that a lot of community focus is driven towards equity. So by the nature of our community's partners focuses, the solutions that we're bringing to the table hopefully generate that. But it's a critical focus of ours to try to drive as many solutions to market that promote that type of equity. One project I'll highlight for you just very quickly is one that we're actually partnering with LISC on. So LISC is actually looking at taking a very detailed data-driven look at essentially family wealth creation for historically underserved neighborhoods, and addressing the problem statement of why does a neighborhood in one area, particularly of Duval County and Jacksonville, that's largely just a historically underserved neighborhood with the same footprint as a house maybe in another non-historically underserved neighborhood. They both have the same footprint, both have the same look, but why is there such a price disparity other than what's given to the naked eye? And so we're assisting them in obviously the data visualization part, but also identifying potential property technologies. So prop tech, if you're familiar with the market, to start to disrupt some of the current processes that our property appraiser's office has around the region, around the area, to try to help these families, realize the value of where their homes are, but also start to create greater equity within the context of those of home ownership. So for us, we really try to drive our energy towards the problem statements that go through that, to be very practical. Because again, one of the big things that I've noticed in the smart city market is, or at least in the failure within the smart city market, is when technology is forced onto a community, or when it's forced into a perceived problem statement, and there's not that community relationship that's built to be able to really identify the problem so that the solution really solves it at its core. I know that's very general of me, and I apologize maybe to be too general, but hopefully that starts to engage where you're trying to go with that question, because every solution that we're trying to bring to market hopefully addresses equity. We're trying to push for it. And then I think on the data side, I think it's limitless what we can do to try to pull together, the data and visualize it to show where we need to make better, stronger investments. And again, not allow that just, perception is reality to reign supreme. It's more about, getting the hard numbers out there too in new ways that we've not done before. So hopefully that addressed kind of the question at hand.
Yeah, thanks, Clayton. I appreciate it. Yeah, ultimately what it comes down to is just being mindful of it, right? Being mindful of equity, keeping it part of the conversation, and what we're thinking about as we step these things forward. Because as you said, practicality, right? That's an understandable approach, but we really have a real opportunity in the community right now to have a meaningful footprint in that space. And
for sure,
it's a great opportunity to take advantage of it. So.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm a huge boots on the ground guy, right? And that's what we do. I'm driving out to Keystone and spending hours out there, and because you don't know how the technology is going to affect it until you're just there and you're seeing it, you're touching it, and you're talking to people, and you understand how the citizen is really going to engage with it. So I totally agree with that.
Other questions, comments?
Yes.
Yes, Nabil.
Hello, Clayton. Nabil Mahaisen, City Kissimmee. I was just wondering if you have any metrics as to where we at with the smart implementation of this plan, and where do you see us down the line 5 years from now? I mean, do you have an idea of where you're going to be by what time, if you will?
Sure. So as far as as far as metrics of growth are concerned, being so young, any that I could give you right now even would be a disservice, because we are still testing the market viability here, to be honest with you. But 5 years from now, I frankly see, I'm not saying it's Smart North Florida that's leading the charge for it. Five years from now, I truly see this being a movement that reaches, every corner of the state. And I think it's we have a tremendous opportunity to start positioning that. And it really starts with just the adoption of like one new technology solution, to get buy-in from just like one area of your communities, to then, because I'm telling you, it's just like a snowball effect, as they would say, right? So I would be more confident to give you specific metrics around it within over 2022, frankly, because a lot of these pilots, even that I've talked to you about, are just getting kicked off. And any good pilot to test a solution, obviously that's a 3-month window at least to really get the data to know if it's working. So we'll be able to generate much more success case studies. Probably Q2 of 22, we'll really start to know, hey, these solutions are working, they're adoptable across the board. So I would say from a metric side, I can speak pretty confidently to that. Also, too, from an adoption side across the state, there is a bill that has been filed in the Senate, and one that is imminently going to be filed in the House. Right now, Senate Bill 1098 is Smart Region Zone legislation. What it would essentially do is create 4 more connected and contiguous counties, could create a center of excellence within said counties, apply to Enterprise Florida, the state of Florida, and receive funding to deploy smart city related projects across that 4 more county contiguous region. There's a little bit more that goes into it, but definitely check out Senate Bill 1098. It's a very interesting piece of legislation, one that we're extremely bullish on championing. And it's one that will affect every region across the state. So if you check it out and you like it, definitely one to champion across the board.
Other questions? Anyone virtually, please raise hand. All right, well, thank you for joining us. Besides comments you got, I saw a lot of notes taken in the room, so we really appreciate you.
Thank you. Y'all an awesome group. I really appreciate the time today.
This concludes today's presentations for the TSMO meeting. In your agenda, you will see that we have 2 common presentations with TAC, the meeting following this. If you are a member of TAC, you can go into the link in your panelist invitation via email. If not, please join through the public link at metroplanorlando.org/virtual meetings. We'll have a presentation on the fiscal year 2022-23 through 2026-27 tentative 5-year work program, and also a presentation from UCF Innovative Research on the wrong way driving. Also call your attention to several items in the general information under tab 4 within your packets. Our next TSMO meeting will be January the 28th, and this will be an in-person meeting. So hope to see you all here on that meeting. We also have an upcoming MetroPlan Orlando board meeting on December the 8th. That is also an in-person meeting. At this time, we have our other business, and with committee's discretion, what I would like, I'm sorry, just a second. Agenda says it's at the back page. Mr. Smith just pointed out the agenda mentions that we are meeting at 10, which is incorrect. We will have our normal meeting time. For the other business, we did have the Florida Automated Vehicle Summit here in Orlando, and I would like to ask anyone if they have comments that attended to feel free to make those impressions, thoughts that you had. I did notice several members of our committee there, along with a few that made some presentations, so I welcome you to make your comments. What I saw was kind of across the board. Are we preparing for automated vehicles because they're coming no matter what? So we need to get ready. Here they come. Or are we looking to solve problems with them? And also some comments across the board on the readiness. Some comments that we need to make sure we're ready before we deploy. Others that they don't need to work all the time. As long as they work most of the time, is that good enough? So it seems like we're still working on understanding of the environment and getting ourselves ready and what it is that we're trying to accomplish with them, but with the inevitable understanding that they are in fact coming. So I thought that was interesting that there's still difference in opinion out there as to how soon and how inevitable, but they're definitely coming. Other thoughts, comments, observations? Yes, Brett.
Thank you, Chairman. I actually was able to attend Doug's presentation, and I think it was during the Q&A session. There was some very good discussion, and Doug made a comment that said something to the effect of, I'm not going to say as eloquent as he did, something to the effect of, instead of looking for ways that autonomous vehicles can be demonstrated in our systems, look for cases where they're needed and put the technology into our systems, where they're shown to be effective. And we've had a lot of demonstration projects, and I think that's where we need to move into. How can these actually be effective in our systems? And I think that was a very good point, because at some point, we can show that they work in very, limited areas, but we have to actually show they work in the areas where people need them. There was also some interesting discussion on what I call the toaster AV shuttles, which are really only going to about 12 miles an hour now. And some of the discussions about them and the limitations on them was interesting, as opposed to other companies which are taking existing vehicles that are crash tested and making those autonomous vehicles. There seemed to be more of a shift towards doing that than maybe using the specific vehicle. Some of the reasons are, I guess, it's very difficult to crash test those vehicles. It takes a lot of money and investment to crash test the vehicles in their limited production. So that was an interesting discussion. Also, I was very impressed by the last general speaker, the general session speaker. There was two actually. One of them was Professor Alan Kornhauser from Princeton. He oversees, I guess, their automated driving division over in Princeton. And he's got if you looked into the information on him, he's got a podcast called Smart Driving Cars, which I listened to, and it's very informative. It's a weekly podcast. So I'd suggest that anyone wants to stay on top of that, just search Smart Driving Cars podcast. So, but yeah, lots of good information. Kind of blows your mind to think about it too much, but thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That's Brian.
Yeah, there's two Brians.
There are two Brians. So we'll start with
Continue
proximity and go with Brian.
Continue around the table. I'll go. Thanks,
You want to
Brian.
go first?
Sure, I'll go. Yeah, so first thing, it was jam-packed, right? I think from the beginning to the end, there was a lot of good information, a lot of sessions right on top of each other. So a lot of information coming at you all at once, a little bit of drinking from the fire hose there. One of the things I'll add to what Brett and you shared, Doug, is there was also a good amount of conversation and discussion on the electric side of the ACEs, right? So they weren't just focused on purely the AV, the connected and automated vehicle. It was a more nuanced focus, and a lot of discussion on electrification of the vehicle fleet and how that's really going to change, and how we need to prepare for that, because that's a whole nother ball of wax, getting ready for the eventual EV readiness within the region. So a lot of interesting speakers there. I enjoyed the demos again, very similar demos. If any of you haven't been to a FAV, I would highly recommend it. And I believe the next year is being hosted up in Jacksonville and Amelia Island. So that's kind of fun too. But it's a really fun conference. There's just a lot of information, innovation, and what I like about it is it's not typically just the same story every time, right? You've got a lot of different unique perspectives from throughout the industry, players in the investment side, people who are in the automotive and OEM side, there's people in the, as Brett mentioned, the academic side. So you're looking at it from all angles, which is really the helpful part of the conference, right? You're not just getting a single perspective. So I definitely enjoyed, recommend it. You don't know, maybe it's not one you need to go to every year because, right, there's a lot of the same things. This is an incremental. One thing that really is a key takeaway for me in this is progress is not linear. I remember going to the FAV in 2016, and I think everybody was just as excited in 2016. And I think there was a thought, right, that by the time we got to here, 2021, we'd be a lot further along than we are. And it's proving to be a really difficult challenge that the industry is really excited about tackling. And I think the promise is still there. The excitement is still there. And again, progress isn't linear, but we're making it. So.
Thank you, Brian. Brian?
I had a great time as well. Echo a lot of the comments that were given so far. It's a very interesting group of people. There's a very distinct clique in AV, and in some of the presentations, you could tell that they knew how to get under each other's skin and kind of churn the goulash up a bit. So that was very interesting. There's a lot of different business models, a lot of different demos going on. Hat tip to the Expressway for the in-lane charging. It's at speed. I just kind of envision lightning coming up and hitting the vehicle as it's speeding by, but we'll see. We'll see how that works. Very interested in that. I was very happy that there was some emphasis on rural safety. Some of the vehicles have got signage now that, feedbacks to the driver. I could definitely see amendments to the APL for some of our signage, kind of like QR coding that these cameras and sensors can read. Very interesting. The different equipment. I mean, these guys are the kind of guys that go to Skycraft and they've got wires all in their car. They got stuff stuck all over the windshield for sensors. It's very raw, but it's very progressive as well. So that was cool. Good focus on freight as well. It's very interesting that they want us to be prepared for coming from the interstate to their destinations, and we should realize that. Port automation, that was pretty cool as well. It was interesting that the port managers were saying, we don't want something just completely autonomous showing up, because we need somebody there to, if the bills aren't paid, if the liability of changing ownership of the freight isn't all perfect, we got to talk to somebody. So that was interesting. The delivery systems, they're progressing. There was an aha moment in there where someone asked, well, how do you know if you're getting pulled over or not? Because some of this stuff runs in the road, not just on the sidewalk. And it kind of made them step back for a second and think about that. They said, well, we've never been pulled over, so I guess we'll have to think about that. They had drones as well. That was really cool. City of Orlando, they had their piece of equipment there. It was kind of a heavy equipment that you could put different hydraulic platforms on and run. So it was all very, very interesting. It made me think a lot about what we're doing and what we need to be prepared to do in the future. And it seems like they're content with the infrastructure that we've got. They're figuring all this out with what we've got. So we just need to, I guess, keep checking back in to see what kind of things that they need in our realm to aid them. But I think they're overcoming a lot of stuff that is already existing out there. So that was very interesting.
And Eric had a presentation, made a good comment that I wrote down. Let's make sure we're not using technology to solve the problems we're creating. Thought that was really good comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank Central Florida Expressway for including me on their panel because they're doing some really exciting stuff, and anxious to get Brian back in front of us to present on the work that they're doing, because I think it's very innovative, and it certainly provides an opportunity for us to move into a more electrified industry. And I don't want to repeat all the good thoughts that have been shared, but just a couple, and one builds on the presentation that Clayton gave, that we have a lot of technology companies right here in our backyard. And it would probably behoove us to engage them so that we can address some of the challenges you mentioned, Brian Sanders, with how do we allow their technology to use the infrastructure that we currently have, but also how can we advance our infrastructure so that it can accommodate their technology. So that's one. And I think that is the opportunity for us to identify the low-hanging fruit, to show that it works. Because first it's got to work, but then we have to show that it works, that it addresses a problem. So to look for that low-hanging fruit, because every time you hear about a self-driving vehicle and there's a crash involving that vehicle, it just sets us back. It sets everything back. So if we can identify, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, those opportunities and define those opportunities and to use technology to address those challenges, I think that will allow us to continue to advance down the field, if you will. So I'll conclude with my comments there, Mr. Chairman. And related to that, I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for guiding this committee for 2 years, not one, two, in the face of the pandemic, and continuing us to operate as we have. I think you've done a yeoman's job, and I'm glad that you have been at the helm. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and also thank you to the committee. We've been through 2 very unusual years, moving to Zoom, back to the room, sometimes to Zoom, masks, no masks. We've all adapted, and I appreciate you've hung in there with us and been at every meeting. So thank you very much. Any other comments in the other business?
Just say thank you to MetroPlan Orlando for the calendar, which we always look forward to every year.
Well, just so you know, those are award-winning calendars, and whenever I'm around, I get people commenting that they have received their calendar and they look forward to getting it every year. So in good stead, Ken. Thank you.
We now move to our public comment. If we have any members of the public who wish to comment and are joining us virtually, please use the raise hand function. You will be recognized, or dial *9 on your phone keypad. We will send you the prompt to unmute your mic. After you're recognized, please state your name, your address, and go ahead and limit your comments to 2 minutes or less. Do we have any public comments?
Mr. Chairman, we have Joanne Canellis with their hand raised on the attendee side.
Seeing none in the room, Joanne.
Hello there, this is Joanne. This is Joanne Canales, and my address is 324 Claremont Road, Lakeland, Florida, 32746. Yes, I want all our Florida to be smart Florida, including Seminole, Orange, and Osceola counties, places like that. Especially because I like to go to Special Olympics without hurting my feet. Yeah, I'd like to have 24 hours bus and train service, including holidays, weekends, and nighttime, like I said earlier. And we need a bus from Lake Mary Sunhill Station to Seminole State College. And we'd like to have this bus also at the Oviedo Boulevard also. especially the one by the aquatic center at Oviedo. You know where that is. It's a big kahuna pool, okay? Yes. And yes, you need to have the bus and train every half hour all day long so that no one be stranded. And maybe even some at night so that no one would be stranded either, especially coming home from their work or destination or even a party and stuff, so that no one may be stopped by the cop because of the drunkenness and anything like that. Even on the 4th of July and stuff like that. Please, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joanne. We appreciate your participation and your concern for everyone else also. So thank you very much. Any other public comment?
I have not received any.
We have not received any written either. We would like to just take a quick moment to recognize Steve Listel joining us here from Space Coast TPO. So thank you.
Thanks here. All right. Hello, Stephen Bostel at the Space Coast Transportation Planning Organization. I did want to echo in a little bit on the takeaways from the FAB Summit. Just dovetailing on what everybody was discussing, and Mr. Sanders was kind of got to at the end of the comments was what can we do as our organizations to gear up and get ready for that. And as Brian mentioned, you know, back in 2016, 2017, we were all really excited to get involved in seeing what we can do to prepare for all of this. And at the time, I was younger and bright-eyed about, you know, what can we do? And I talked to Rick Morrow at the time, and he said, expand your network and maintain and operate better. And so I think that's what we can all still keep doing in the short term. I think everyone's gotten better at it since then, but there's still a lot of work we can still do. So just wanted to give my 2 cents on that one.
Thank you for doing so.
Thank you.
With that, we'll go ahead and conclude our meeting. Thank you everyone for attending, and congratulations, Mr. Chairperson and Mr. Vice Chairperson. Thank you very much.